Liam Hartley rose before dawn, the same way he had every morning on his rugged homestead in northern Montana. A faint silver glow reached across the plains as the sun prepared to climb over the distant ridgeline. The morning air carried the cold bite of early spring, and Liam breathed it in deeply as he sat on the edge of his bed, pulling on his boots. He had been turning over the same thought in his mind for weeks now, buying another horse to help with the growing workload. His old mare, Willow, was still loyal and willing, but the years had slowed her stride. A neighbor from a remote corner of the county had called him the previous night, claiming he had a sturdy young gelding for sale. Strong, steady, able to haul weight and travel over long pastures without tiring. Liam, a man of few words and simple habits, agreed to come look at it without asking much else. He drove along the long dirt road that wound through wide fields and scattered patches of evergreens. Fence posts leaned tiredly toward the road, the wood bleached from too many winters. Liam cracked the truck window, letting the early wind hit his face. He wasn't thinking about anything complicated, just the horse, how he'd train it, how it might help him work the far fields, how it might feel to ride something young and energetic again. When he reached the property, the quietness unsettled him at once. The old house looked weathered but inhabited, and a broad barn stood a little ways off, its boards faded to a soft gray by time. Liam stepped out of his truck and knocked on the front door. No answer. He tried again, called out politely, then waited. Still nothing. "Maybe he's in the barn," Liam murmured. Crossing the uneven yard, he approached the structure. The barn door hung slightly open, a narrow slice of sun cutting through the darkness inside. Liam pushed it wider. The familiar scent of hay, dust, and old timber wrapped around him. A soft stillness filled the interior, bales stacked neatly, tools hung on hooks, a couple of empty stalls, but no horse. He walked deeper in, calling out again, "Hello, I'm here about the gelding." Silence. As he turned to leave, a faint sound reached his ears, so soft he almost dismissed it as the wind. But it wasn't wind. It was human, weak, like a breath or a broken attempt at speech. His shoulders tensed. He followed the sound toward a dim corner of the barn where the light barely reached. As his eyes adjusted, the shape came into focus. A woman. She sat slumped against the wall, her legs slightly pulled in, her clothes torn and dirty. Her face was pale, exhausted, and frightened. Strands of hair fell across her eyes, and her hands trembled in her lap. She looked up at Liam with fear so raw it made him freeze mid-step. He softened his voice immediately. "Hey, it's all right. I'm not here to hurt you." She tried to reply, but her voice was barely a whisper, the words collapsing before they formed. Liam moved closer, slow and careful. When he reached the shadows beside her, he noticed the thing that made his stomach twist, a rusted chain fastened around her ankle, bolted into the wooden wall. His breath caught. He'd seen accidents, storms, and livestock injuries, but never something like this. He crouched down, keeping his tone calm. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She nodded faintly. "I'm going to help you," he promised. She blinked, fragile hope flickering in her tired gaze. But someone had chained her there, and that someone might still be nearby. "I need tools," Liam whispered. "I'll be right back, I won't leave you." Her fingers curled slightly at his reassurance. Liam rose and walked to his truck, every sense alert, watching the silent property for any sign of danger. He grabbed the toolbox from behind his seat and hurried back inside. She looked at him with trembling relief as he knelt beside her. "This might take a moment," he said gently, fitting the bolt cutter around the chain. The first squeeze barely dented it, the second cracked it. On the third, with a harsh snap, the chain finally broke. The woman exhaled shakily as Liam gently supported her. She was far lighter than he expected, weak from fear, cold, and hunger. "Let's get you out of here," he murmured. And together, step by careful step, they left the darkness of the barn behind. Liam helped the woman into the passenger seat of his truck, adjusting the seat gently so she could lean back without straining. She wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to hold in whatever strength she had left. He draped his spare jacket over her shoulders. She clutched it with trembling fingers, grateful for the warmth. He started the truck and pulled away from the abandoned property, checking the mirrors every few seconds. The morning sun was climbing higher, casting long gold streaks across the plains, but the light did nothing to ease the tension pressing against his ribs. After several minutes of quiet, he asked gently, "Can you drink some water?" She nodded without lifting her eyes. Liam handed her a bottle, and when her weak hands struggled to twist the cap, he helped her open it. She took a small sip, coughing softly as her body fought the unfamiliar sensation of comfort. "Take your time," Liam said, keeping his tone even. "You're safe now." She didn't respond, but she glanced at him, quick, hesitant, as though trying to measure whether she truly believed those words. He didn't ask questions. She was in no state to answer them. Right now, getting her to the small-town clinic 20 miles away was all that mattered. They were about halfway there when Liam noticed a cloud of dust in his rearview mirror. A vehicle, fast-moving, gaining. The woman stiffened beside him, her breathing suddenly sharp and uneven. Liam didn't need her to say anything. Her fear said enough. She whispered one word, barely a breath, "Him." Liam's jaw tightened. He didn't look at her. He didn't want his alarm to worsen hers, but he kept his eyes locked on the mirror. The truck behind them came closer, the silhouette of its cab looming in the dust. For a moment, Liam felt the air squeeze tight inside the cab. Then, just as suddenly, the vehicle slowed. It veered sharply onto a side road and disappeared behind a stand of tall pines. The woman sagged against the seat, releasing a breath she had been holding too long. Liam reached over and pulled the jacket more securely around her. "You're all right," he murmured. "I won't let anything happen to you." She nodded weakly, eyes glistening with exhausted fear, but she said nothing else. The rest of the drive passed in strained silence. Liam stayed focused, hands firm on the steering wheel. The woman, who still hadn't given him her name, kept her gaze on the fields passing by, as if afraid the world outside might suddenly turn against her. When they finally reached the clinic, Liam parked right at the front door. He stepped out and lifted her carefully, supporting her weight as they walked. The nurses inside the reception area took one look at her and hurried over with gentle urgency. "Let's get her inside," one of them said softly. "You can stay with her for a moment if she wants." The woman tightened her fingers around Liam's sleeve. He squeezed her hand lightly. "I'm right here," he assured her. Inside the examination room, the nurses and on-call doctor began checking her vitals, speaking in quiet tones so as not to frighten her. They asked Liam to wait just outside while they tended to her injuries and exhaustion. The moment the door closed, Liam felt the weight of everything settle upon him. He began packing the hallway, replaying the discovery in the barn, the chain, the fear in her eyes, the shadowed corner where she had been left alone. The world could be ugly and cruel, but seeing it that closely made something stir inside him. A protective anger he rarely felt, a determination that surprised even him. After what felt like an hour, the door cracked open. A nurse stepped out and spoke quietly. "She's stable, exhausted, dehydrated, but stable. She asked if you could come in for a moment." Liam nodded and entered. The woman was sitting up slightly, wrapped in a soft blanket. Her face still held traces of fear, but now something gentler rested beneath it, relief. She met his eyes hesitantly. Her voice trembled when she spoke. I'm Mara." Liam nodded with a steady warmth. "Mara," he repeated softly, as if to anchor her name in the room. "I'm glad to meet you." She breathed in slowly, fragile but present. "Thank you for finding me." "You're safe now," he said again, but this time she seemed to believe it. A few hours passed as Mara rested under the clinic's careful watch. Liam sat in a chair near her bed, giving her space while staying close enough that she could see he hadn't left. Every so often, her eyes drifted toward him as if she needed to confirm he was still there. By mid-afternoon, she looked stronger, not physically, not fully, but emotionally steadier than she had been when he first carried her in. The doctor checked on her again and confirmed she would need food, rest, and time more than anything else. Her injuries were mostly superficial, but the exhaustion ran deep. Not long after, Sheriff Dalton arrived. A tall man with a weathered face and a calm presence, he greeted Liam with a firm nod before turning his attention to Mara. He didn't approach too close, respecting her space. "If it's all right with you," the sheriff said gently, "I'd like to hear what happened. Only what you can manage, no pressure." Mara hesitated. Her fingers twisted in the blanket, a habit born from too many anxious days. Liam stayed quiet, but she looked at him, seeking permission, or maybe just reassurance. His eyes held the same steady calm he'd shown since the moment he found her. She nodded slowly and whispered, "I can try." The sheriff listened patiently as she spoke in fragile fragments. She didn't offer details about every moment, only the parts she could bear to say out loud, trusting the wrong man, being trapped, losing her sense of time, losing her hope. She paused often, blinking through the weight of memory. Whenever her voice faltered, the sheriff waited, no rush, no judgment. When she finally fell silent, he closed his notebook softly. "You did the right thing coming here," he said. "We'll handle the rest, and Mara, you're not alone now." She let out a shaky breath, as though she had been holding it for months. After the sheriff left the room, the exhaustion returned to her face, but this time it wasn't the same hollow fear. It was the tiredness of someone who had finally taken the first step toward freedom. A nurse brought her a warm meal. Mara ate slowly, her hands still trembling, but every bite seemed to settle something inside her. Liam sat quietly, sipping the coffee they'd offered him, keeping a respectful distance while staying close enough that she didn't feel abandoned. When she finished, she looked toward the window, where the sunlight was drifting lower, casting soft amber light across the room. "I don't know where to go now," she whispered. "I don't have a home I can return to, no one waiting for me. Everything I had feels gone." Liam took a long breath before answering. He didn't want to make promises carelessly, but he also knew what his instincts were saying. "You don't have to decide everything today," he replied gently. "But if you need somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, you're welcome at my place. I've got a spare room. It's small but peaceful, no neighbors nearby. You can stay as long as you need." Myra stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise. I don't want to burden you." "You wouldn't be," Liam said with simple certainty. "I wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it." A long moment passed where neither spoke. Her eyes softened, filling with a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "Thank you," she murmured. "I never expected anyone to care enough to help me, even after I was safe." Liam gave a small, sincere smile. Sometimes life puts people in our path for a reason. Mara looked down at her hands, then back at him. "Would it really be all right if I stayed at your place for a little while, until I figure things out?" "Of course," he said warmly. "You're not alone in this." As the evening shadows stretched across the clinic floor, Mara settled back against the pillows. She no longer looked lost, just tired and slowly beginning to rebuild herself. Before leaving for the night, Liam gave her a gentle nod. "I'll be back in the morning. We'll take it one step at a time." Mara met his eyes with the first true hint of hope he had seen in her. "I'll be here," she whispered. And for the first time since he'd found her in the barn's dark corner, she sounded like someone who believed tomorrow might actually be better. Liam arrived at the clinic before sunrise the next morning. He had barely slept, but not from worry. His thoughts had been steady and clear. Mara would be discharged today, and he wanted her to know she wasn't facing this new beginning alone. The sky was a pale lavender as he pulled into the parking lot. Inside, the halls were quiet and cool, carrying the calm hush of early morning. The nurse at the front desk recognized him and nodded toward Mara's room with a warm smile. "She's awake," she said softly. "Been waiting for you." Liam walked down the hallway, pausing at her door before knocking gently. "Come in," Mara's voice answered, soft but stronger than the day before. He stepped inside. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, dressed in clean clothes the clinic had provided. Her hair was tied back, and although she still looked delicate, there was a steadiness in her posture that hadn't been there earlier. Her eyes brightened when she saw him. "You came," she said, though she already seemed certain he would. "I said I would," Liam replied, pulling a chair closer. "How are you feeling?" "A little nervous," she admitted, fingers folding the corner of the blanket, "but hopeful." "That's a good place to start," Liam said. "One step at a time." Mara hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Is your offer still open? About staying at your place until I figure out what comes next?" "Of course," Liam said immediately. His voice didn't waver. "You're welcome for as long as you need." She exhaled shakily, overwhelmed by relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." "You don't owe me anything," Liam replied gently. "Healing isn't a debt." A nurse entered with discharge papers and went through them patiently. Mara listened carefully, asking a few quiet questions before signing. When everything was finished, Liam picked up her small bag, the only belongings she had, and guided her out of the clinic. The drive back to the homestead was a quiet one but not empty. Mara watched the landscape with soft awe, the wide plains, the slow rise of distant hills, the fearless sweep of open sky. The world outside the truck seemed larger and kinder than she remembered. She leaned back against the seat, absorbing the quiet. Liam talked a little, telling her about the homestead, the animals, the way the seasons changed the color of the land. She listened with a faint smile, letting the peacefulness of his life wash over her. When they reached his place, Mara couldn't help but stare. The small wooden house stood solidly in the open fields. Horses grazed nearby, tails flicking lazily in the morning breeze. The air smelled of earth and pine and sunlight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Welcome home," Liam said softly. He helped her out of the truck and walked her inside. The guest room was simple but warm, sunlight spilling across the bedspread. Mara touched the windowsill gently, her eyes glistening, not from fear, but from a sense of safety she had forgotten existed. "It's perfect," she murmured. "Take your time settling in," Liam said. "I'll be outside if you need anything." She rested for a while, listening to the soft sounds of the homestead, the distant nicker of a horse, the creak of wood as the house adjusted to morning warmth, the quiet rhythm of a place untouched by fear. Later, she joined Liam outside, watching him repair a fence with calm precision. When he saw her approaching, he paused. "You don't need to work yet," he said gently. "You're still healing." "I know," Mara replied softly, "but I want to feel useful again, even a little." Liam handed her a brush and nodded toward Willow, his old mare. "She'd like the company, I think." Mara approached the horse slowly. Willow lowered her head, welcoming the gentle touch. As Mara brushed her coat, she smiled, small, genuine, unforced, a smile that felt like a beginning. That evening, they sat on the porch as the sun sank behind the hills, painting the sky in gold and rose. Mara hugged her knees lightly, letting the calm settle around her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me a place to breathe, to start over." Liam looked at her with warmth. "You're stronger than you know, and you're safe here." The breeze rustled the tall grass. The horizon glowed softly. In that quiet moment, something unspoken but steady formed between them. A trust built on kindness rather than expectation. A bond shaped not by rescue but by respect. For Mara, it was the first step into a future she had once believed impossible. For Liam, it was the quiet understanding that helping her had changed him, too. Together under the fatting light, They watched the day settle into peace. And it felt like the beginning of something gently, quietly beautiful.